Hoop has become a huge part of my system since I started using it. I guess I could talk about before Hoop. So before Hoop, I had physical and digital post-it notes, basically.
All right. So, Jackie, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Do you mind just like quickly introducing yourself?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Jacquie. I'm based in New York. I'm an early stage investor. I invest in seed and Series A businesses and an investor in Hoop also. And Stella and I have gotten to know each other actually before Hoop, and then since then have worked closely together. Like I said, I live in New York. A lot of my job is spent meeting people, whether virtually or in person, either at an office at a co-working space, working from home, or out in the wild. And I have a son, and that's a little about me.
Okay, Jackie, on a scale of 1 to 5, how busy is your typical day?
10,
10.
nonstop, back to back to back to back. It's so from the minute I wake up until I go to sleep.
So, what is like a typical, and I'm guessing there's not like a typical day, but give us like an idea of what a normal day looks like.
Yeah, I can talk about today. I feel like it's as
Yeah.
typical a day as any. So usually in the morning, I'm like catching up on things that have come back to me overnight, often working from my phone, getting some emails out really quickly in the morning before I get to wherever I need to go. Then this morning, I'm at a co-working space. I have 4 or 5 Zoom calls. I just had a board call where we were talking about a pre-call to talk about the budget that we're going to have a real call about in December. So that was with 5 or 6 people that are on a board of a company that I'm an investor in. Then I have this call with you. After that, I have a call with a new business. I'm meeting a founder for the first time on Zoom. And then I have a lunch with a couple other investors. After that, I'm meeting 2 companies in person this afternoon over coffee. First time I'm meeting one of them, and then one of them I've met 6 months ago, but I'm getting to know them, and they might raise a round soon, so we're digging into some more details. And then later on, I have an event that's hosted by another investor that is not necessarily about investing, it's about directional living, and she has an author coming to speak. So that's my day today.
Oh my God, I have like whiplash thinking about all the coffee you're gonna have and and so I'm guessing like in between all of this like activity that you have, you also have to be responsive to things that are happening like within the firm. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's probably, I would say, today, and that's pretty typical, like 2 or 3 hour gaps, whether all together or spread out during the day, where I'm on my computer doing work. And so that's responding to emails, that's on Slack with the rest of my team. My team is fully distributed. So we're all across the country. I have team members in California, Chicago, Utah, DC, and so everyone's on different time zones. And everyone's working on things collaboratively and also independently, but where we need to weigh in and help each other out. And so when I get back to my computer, usually I probably have 100 Slack messages to go through and understand who needs me where and what's an FYI versus something that I need to take action on. And then outside of our firm, a lot of communication on email. So whether it's setting up time to meet, set up some of these meetings I talked about, or
Yeah.
it's someone reaching out saying, would you be interested in learning more about X? I also read a bunch of newsletters to stay up on topics and current events. And so that's something that I'll do. Usually that's like on the subway for me, but I'll sometimes do if I have a moment when I'm sitting at my computer. So that's what happens in the in-between time.
So how do you, first of all, on a typical day, how are you feeling? What's your internal sort of situation?
It's a very energizing job. I love people, so I love getting to spend time with people. That's my favorite part of my job. My least favorite part of my job is probably getting back to my computer and having 100 Slacks. But it's definitely a role where my to-do list is never ending. I feel like I'm keeping 100 balls in there, and that's just at work. Like I said, I have a 1-year-old as well, so there's also 100 personal balls to keep in the air. So it's definitely chaotic at times.
Chaotic. Okay. And how do you think about managing the reactive tasks of responding in Slack to some of your more long-term goals?
Yeah, that's really the challenge when you hear how I talked about my day, how it stop-start in that way.
Yeah.
It can be really easy to sit down and have an hour and a half block and realize all I did during that block was get back to people and throw the ball back over the net to people just for them to come back the next time I'm at my computer. And so that's where, for me, it's so important to understand what are the tasks that need me or require input to move forward versus the task that, this is a really interesting article my colleague shared, but I can read this later on tonight. It's not as time sensitive. And so being able to prioritize things in that way is huge for me. And then for like my longer term tasks, I block them on my calendar. I schedule a meeting with myself to do those. And those meetings are non-negotiable because otherwise things that are going to take 40 hours to get somewhere, it's hard to get started on.
So I feel like most people that I talk to who are as busy as you are, they have some sort of a system. They're like, or they're always trying to like make their system better. Like you just mentioned scheduling time with yourself. Do you have, what is your system?
Hoop has become a huge part of my system since I started using it. I guess I could talk about before Hoop. So before Hoop, I had physical and digital Post-it notes, basically. I had my notes app and I had a notebook going, and sometimes I'd be in a meeting and I wouldn't have my notebook out, and so then I would have a napkin that I then taped into my notebook and wrote down my to-do list into my phone on my notes app that also was on my computer. And that, by the way, like the notes app already felt like a huge step forward for me because it's synced between my phone and my computer. A lot of my job when I'm on the go happens on my phone, then I have to get to my computer. But inevitably there were things that got lost or stuff that just lived in my head that when you're about to fall asleep and you think, I have to write that on my to-do list. And so now with Hoop has really taken over all the digital to-dos in my life. Anything that comes to me outside of an in-person meeting comes through Hoop. So much so that now that I have Hoop on email, I'll ask people like, oh, will you please email that to me? Instead of saying, oh, just send me a text, whatever. Like that peace of mind that I get knowing that everything is going to come through Hoop is amazing, because it means when I sit down for that hour and a half chunk that I have on the in-between times, I just go straight to Hoop. That's like my digital dashboard for what I need to do, what I need to accomplish. And it has small things like confirm XYZ meeting, or it has bigger things like come back to one of my portfolio companies about the strategy working with one of their biggest partners. And so that's the digital system that works for me. And one of the things that I started doing when I had my more chaotic note-taking experience was like a check-in before I go to bed, right? Because oftentimes I will have been like, tonight I'm going to be at this directional living event, and then I'm going to come home and inevitably stuff is going to have happened over that time, or there's going to be stuff I didn't get to on the in-between times today. And that would mean sitting down, racking my brain for, okay, what did I tell this person? Who did I text on the way to the event that I was going to come back to them about a time on Friday or whatever that is? And now that check-in for me lives in Hoop. Like I go to Hoop and I say, okay, is everything in a good place so that I could pick this up tomorrow? And for me, it's this behavior that I started doing a long time ago, like the end of the day check-in, but it's so much more seamless. And I don't leave wondering, is there something else that I texted someone, scrolling through my text? Was it on WhatsApp? Not sure. I really try now and keep everything there because it gives me peace of mind.
Are you also checking in throughout the day? So you mentioned the 1 hour chunk of time. Do you usually start that in Slack? Because you mentioned you have 100 Slack DMs, which is, do you start with Slack or do you start in Hoop?
Now I start in Hoop because oftentimes in Slack, like what the action I used to have to take, and you'll know this too because I know you guys use Slack, is like you go into the channel. And I guess you could go through all the notifications, but that to me is like way too much. So you go into the channel, I'm like triaging based on which channel I think is going to be important, based on what I know contextually is going on in that day. But then you have to scroll up, see this, that, someone asked something, but then someone's actually already answered it below and they don't need me. And so now I start in Hoop because I find that Hoop elevates the things where people actually need something from me. A good example is this is like a small thing, but we have been really focused on marketing at our firm. And LinkedIn push has been a big part of that. And one of the important things when you're using LinkedIn is that you're quickly commenting and liking posts as soon as they're put out. And so for us, like that starts at home, like with our colleagues, it's okay, when someone on my team is posting, I want to be there like cheering them on and helping get the post moving. And so someone will say, oh, I just posted on LinkedIn. That is a message that could have been buried beneath hundreds of messages in a channel that I didn't check. I wasn't going to check until the end of the day. And then I missed the window, missed the mark. And now that's something that I see in hoop, and I'm like, okay, that's a thing that they need me to do, and I can go and do it. So I find that my triage time is a tenth of what it used to be.
How many hours do you think hoop is saving you on a weekly basis?
It's saving me at least an hour a day in sorting through what I need to do. But that's not even, I guess this isn't saving time, but it's finding things that I would have missed. And so that to me is like that could be saving me thousands of hours, because if you miss something and something goes wrong, like there's all kinds of like downstream effects, and helping me find things I've missed is like the most important thing. It gives me so much peace of mind, and it makes me a lot better at my job, I think.
What are there any other sort of tools or workflows that you found to be really helpful in managing the chaos?
That's a good question. Like, I use my calendar. I live and die by my calendar. That to me is like the biggest thing. And I've experimented with a couple different calendaring tools, although I think I'm too particular about my calendar to let anything else take over. There's somewhere, if you have a task that you need to do and you like have to, it will auto move it to make sure that it lives on your calendar. Someone would probably hate to be my EA because I have a lot of opinions about how I schedule things. And so none of those have really worked for me, because I like to be really in control of what I'm doing. I'm a big superhuman user. So I like my inbox and some of the triaging that I talked about. I have automated some of that in my inbox through Superhuman, where really like only important things are coming to my important main inbox. But those are Hoop and Superhuman are the only ones where they actually save me time. I don't get nervous that they're trying to do something else and I'm going to lose something or it's going to mess up my day.
Are there any sort of, as you've thought about optimizing your day or your productivity, are there any rituals or sort of mindsets or ideologies? There's so many different like ones. Are there any that you've tried that have worked well or have failed horribly?
So I am a big goal setter, and I set three goals or intentions every year. And they could be like personal, professional. Usually there's one of each. And I have those on a sticky note. I have those a couple different places on my bathroom mirror. And then every single day, first thing I do is write down the 3 most important things I'm going to do that day. And if those don't align with the 3 things I want to do that year at all, then I have to start asking myself some questions. And so that is my guiding philosophy of how to take the big things and make it real in the little things and the way I'm spending my day. And I've been doing it probably for about 4 or 5 years, and I every day. Yeah. And it can be like one of the things that I had for this year was like I had a baby last year, so I want to feel really great. And so sometimes the most important thing that I'm doing that day is taking 2 of my calls as a walk and talk, because I want to get those steps in. And then there's like bigger professional goals. I want to have XYZ companies take XYZ next step. And so what am I doing to implement that? Whether it's meeting people that are going to be helpful with that business, whether it's working directly with a founder on that. Like it's not always like 1 for 1, but if all 3 goals don't line up with the 3 goals for the year, like got to start asking questions about how you're spending your time.
Wow, I love that. And so when you set those annual goals, do you do that like around the new year?
Yeah, I do it around the new year. I start thinking about it. I'm an August birthday, so I start thinking about it after my birthday. I think I noodle on it all fall, and then they're like set for sure before Christmas. Our firm actually shuts down Christmas to New Year's. We all take a week to reset, and then I come back and January 1 get to work.
So do you write it down in some sort of a notebook or like a mood board or anything like that?
I write them like just places where I'm going to see them. So like I have them in like my notes, in like pinned note. I have them like on my bathroom mirror. It's really informal. And honestly, I was thinking now when I'm like telling you this, like I remember them from last year and obviously this year, but like from the 2 years before, I don't even remember exactly what they were, because it's like they're such moving targets and like different things that come top of mind. But that is something that I find it like fun. It's a fun way, that's a light lift to feel like you did what you wanted to do, because the years go by really quick.
And the days go by really quick. And I think that's one thing that I'm always thinking about is like, how do you make sure that you're doing the goals or the priorities that you set versus being very responsive to what other people are asking you to do. So is that something that you think at all about or have any sort of advice?
Yeah, I think a lot about it, and sometimes in the reverse. Like, I think for me, one of the things that I pride myself in and think makes me better at my job and also a better friend and partner is that I am really responsive. Like, I'm down to get on the phone and help someone think through something or work it out. And that can pile up a lot and take up your entire day. And then you didn't do any of the three most important things that you were supposed to do that day. And so it's definitely a balance. I've, played with time blocking it. Like, I used to have, and one of my colleagues does this as well, a block on Fridays, which is like the time when it's mostly just things other people need from me. And so putting all of that together. But I think what I found, then I wouldn't get back to someone for 2 Fridays from now, and that was like too complicated for me. So I think what I found is just like the hyper organization and not letting things fall off the list helps, because I know people say there's only 24 hours in a day, but I think you can always squeeze a little bit more in. And so as long as I'm organized about it and efficient, I think that for me is really key.
So I just have a couple of last questions. I feel like burnout is a common thing that's an issue in a go-to-go environment. What do you think, especially as a newer mom, how do you think about not burning out in such an active time of life?
Yeah, I think a lot about filling my own cup. And that's one of my goals for this year. Like, it's around personal fitness, it's around filling my own cup and feeling really good. And that can look like a lot of different things. Sometimes it's just prioritizing sleep, but usually
1,000,000%.
yeah, usually it's something like making sure I'm walking enough that day, or like trying to get a workout and go to a workout class. And for me, that it means being flexible. Like, I'm often flexible with my time outside of work hours to give more to work or other commitments. And so it means being flexible both ways. If there's a break in the day and I can go and do a couple walks around the block and get some fresh air and feel good, like, I totally give myself the liberty to do that. And I think having this mindset that all time is flexible, but that you can take it back as well. And that has been helpful for me. And I'm lucky that I'm in a role where on one hand, like, you could work 24 hours straight and you would never do enough. But on the other hand, like, there is a lot of flexibility with time. And that's something that I, especially as a mom, feel is awesome.
Last question. If you could give yourself some advice, the Jacquie from 5 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
I think that the small daily repetitive behaviors really add up. Like I mentioned about being responsive, and that's something that I'm really proud of. Being someone's first call and picking up the phone and being really helpful to them, even when it seems like a small thing, builds really strong and meaningful relationships, professionally and personally. And I think that when I first started out, especially in this role, everything was really big. Like, I want to do a lot of deals and I want to be featured on XYZ list. And that to me was how I thought about building my career and personal brand. And I think zooming out, what I've learned so far, and still like early-ish in my career, is that it's more about the day-to-day showing up and the small things and the behavior that you repeat time and time again. And that's how I, at least personally, have chosen to build my personal brand. And I am proud of it.
Yeah, I love that. That's so great. That's very wise, Jacquie.
I'll take it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jacquie. Really appreciate chatting with you. And thanks for being an investor and a user and a friend.
Huge fan. Thanks for building Hoop. As you heard, I definitely need it. Okay.
Thank you so much, Jacquie.
Thanks,
really
Stella.
appreciate you. What a great conversation. Okay.
That was fun.
Bye.
Bye.